We're going to take questions from our listeners that they've sent us in so many different ways that I've had a hard time compiling them all.
Yeah, we can't ignore them for this much longer. And I say ignore. It's not that we have ignored. We have just not done a show that has been listener-centric in terms of their questions and thoughts and ideas and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, we try to respond to as many as possible, but I just realized there's like one or two that fell through the cracks. I'm like, oops.
It's a good problem. That's a good problem, Banksy. It means we're busy, busy, busy. And not busy for the sake of being busy, but busy because we are trying to keep up with a mountain of things. I'm telling you, for the first time with the show, I don't want to say it's a bad stress, but I feel this expectation, this real need to make sure that not only is the content outstanding, but that we are on track to produce. I mean, we've got some time up coming. I mean, you're going to Japan here in June and July. I'm headed out of the country here again over the weekend, and we'll be pretty busy the entire next week. And
we've got something really special planned for our 100th episode.
Oh, yeah.
The schedule came.
It was just the universe,
perfectly.
the Liberty universe coming together. It's going to be awesome.
And we did kind of say we'd try to organize some kind of meetup around that time.
Glad somebody else did it for us. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you know about when the 100th episode is taking place and what else is going on in that time in the Liberty movement.
I'll give you a hint. Ron Paul will be somewhere.
Yeah. Man, I'm excited. We just got confirmation. I don't know that you know this because this is a recent turn of events. But Banks and I have just recently talked about expanding, what we're doing, who we're interviewing, because I went down to Atlanta this weekend for my Christmas present, and on Mother's Day.
Oh, okay. I was lost of where you were going, Shane.
I got to go see Greta Van Fleet. Holy crap, Banks. I cannot tell you how impressed I am. I love their music to begin with. I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan, and the fact that they kind of sound, they had like the lead singer and the band. I mean, they play older types of instruments with older type of equipment, and they have this sound that is just unbelievable. But they're young kids. They're from Michigan, and they had a band called Ida May open up for them. Real primal, really cool thing. And this guy with this resonator type guitar gets up there, and it looks like a big guitar made out of steel. It's got all this extra stuff, and it's him and his wife in a spotlight. They've got some changing background type lights that are going on, and he has this big bass drum behind the two of them, and he uses a kick pad. And so this guy can just absolutely get down on a guitar. And I mean, the talent that's just oozing out of him as he stomps on this kick pad. There's something so beautiful and primal about him and his wife making this music. I was like, man, that's going to be a hard act to follow. And then gets up Greta Van Fleet, and they knocked it out of the park in so many ways. It's visually, I mean, they've got 4 members in the band. 2 of them are twins. They're 3 brothers. The drummer is a guy I think they got out of high school. Every one of these guys is like a 5 out of 5 star musician on their own, and they all had like these little parts within the show. They kind of just showcase their talent. The lead guitarist, man, just blew me away. I mean, talking to like a spiritual experience here. It was incredible. And then at the end of the show, everybody was so amazed by the show that there was a standing ovation. The standing O must have gone on for like 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Everybody was, like yelling and screaming and whistling. And then the chant started, Greta, 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 the whole place. And then everybody turns on the light on their phones and starts waving it back and forth. And this whole place just begins to light up. I mean, the energy was palpable. They came back out. They did 2 more songs. And, I mean, you could just see, I mean, especially from, their front man, the lead singer, I think his name is Josh, the way he participates with the crowd, the showmanship that he has already as a young kid, his appreciation for the audience and his interactedness with it, to see how, everybody was kind of just getting higher off of each other. It was it was amazing. So
that's really cool, man.
With that, to witness that, I was like, man, the rebellion's not just about politics. The rebellion is about culture. And to expand here on the rebellion, a lot of what I would like to do in the future, and I told Banks this earlier, is, talk about things in art, like music, rock and roll, like what happened, a long history. And one of those, a person that I know extremely well and have a, pretty intimate relationship is my father-in-law. Jim Santafonte. And
he knows like a ton about music.
Oh, he knows a ton of them.
The 60s to now.
Or even way further back. He's kind of a savant. Like, this is his passion in life.
That's really cool.
And so he's going to join us, man. I asked him when I was downstairs grabbing a quick snack and some water, and he said, "Yeah, I'm coming. Let's do it." So
yeah, I'd like to talk to him about like the Tipper Gore period where they tried to censor music, and the guy from Leonard Skinner.
Yep.
Twisted Sisters.
Twisted Sister, D. Snyder.
Snyder. That's it.
So yeah, we'll have that episode, and I also want to do comedians in the future. Like the pushback on the establishment by artists, whether it's comedians, whether it's filmmakers, whether it's musicians, whatever it is, in terms of growing this movement and showing people where these people are that are kind of outside their normal wheelhouse. And it was funny that when Meredith and I were talking about going down there, and I was thinking about our kids as well. Like, a lot of things we do, we kind of just do because they're easy to do as a family. Like going to see a movie, and it's right up my oldest son Jackson's wheelhouse there. But going to concerts, that's going to be like Henry's thing. And then, ballets and musicals and things like that, that's going to be kind of Sawyer's thing. And to try to do all of these things as a family to show the other kids, that there's so much worthwhile just outside of what your little wheelhouse is. So
absolutely. There's a few years where I didn't go to school. My parents just homeschooled me, which meant we didn't actually learn anything actively in any kind of like learning like books or something like that, but we did stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I give that credit for like not being an idiot, is that we got to see a lot. We like go museums and castles and parks and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's very important, and often more important than your traditional education necessarily.
Oh, I think it's I'm fascinated now. Like I don't know. There's been this scratch ever since then. I was just like, I've got to do something. And I at least needed to say this. Like that's what's been burning on me. Like, this is the return of the rock gods, and I think I'm so happy to be alive to see some more of this kind of stuff.
You're so excited. Like, I have to listen to them because Shane has been happy all day, and a lot of it is because of that Greta thing. You mentioned comedians. I really want to have a guy on. His name is Jeff Shipley. He's a state rep in Iowa.
Okay.
I talked to him about it. He was busy with session and so forth, but he's a state rep and a comedian.
Yeah.
He introduced a bill to decriminalize psilocybin, which is mushrooms, in Iowa, and he's hilarious and a Ron Paul fan. It's just a perfect like combination.
Sure.
Little bit like a Dave Smith character, except maybe even better. I don't know. So we're going to get to a bunch of questions from the audience, whether you sent it through email, which is info@rebellionpod.com, or on any of our social media, or to us directly, which is at rebellionpod or fbankswise or Shane T. Hazel. But first, we wanted to play a video. No introduction. You'll get the point really fast, and then Shane and I are going to talk about it as calmly as humanly possible. But there is a lot to unpack there, and very interesting points to hear a congressman. This is Congressman Sherman. He represents the San Fernando Valley in California.
Ready?
You want to play it, Shane?
Go.
I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans, so that we nip this in the bud, in part because not an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil and other transactions, and it is the announced purpose of the supporters of cryptocurrency to take that power away from us, to put us in a position where the most significant sanctions we have on Iran, for example, would become irrelevant. So whether it is to disempower our foreign policy, our tax collection enforcement, or our traditional law enforcement, the purposes of cryptocurrency, the advantage it has over sovereign currency, is solely to aid in the disempowerment of the United States and the rule of law.
So,
what a jackass!
This is amazing. So he wants to introduce a bill that would ban buying and selling cryptos in the U.S. by Americans. I mean, that's his jurisdiction. I would imagine he would love to increase that scope. But what I found particularly interesting is how honest he is. I'm not saying he's like
no.
He is
yeah.
so honest. He says this is about power. So through the petrodollar and the dollar being the reserve currency of the world, and it gives us these three major things he talks about. So the power of war, because that's why we can put sanctions on, which are an act of war that have such drastic effects. The power of taxation.
And law enforcement.
And the power of usual law enforcement. And I'm like, and he also understands it. He's like, I want to make sure we can keep this power, because I understand that those that are advancing cryptos specifically want to take away those power. He doesn't call them criminals. He doesn't call them bad people. He just says that's aside. He's like, those three things are important. They want to take it away. Let's nip it in the bud.
So yeah, let's nip this in the bud.
Wow.
And I want to go back and replay this. It's only 1:12. I'm not going to replay the whole thing. We're going to kind of bite-sized digest this together a little bit. I think there are a lot of people that are out there that even in this audience don't really understand crypto. I mean, not everybody's in crypto that's in the liberty movement. I know, especially, probably people that are about, his age.
So, I mean, there's not much to know. It is still a fiat currency for most crypto, so it's not backed by anything tangible, but it is decentralized.
Yeah.
Meaning that no one person or one entity controls it from the center. You can have cryptos to some degree that are not decentralized, but Bitcoin, which is like the big one that introduced people to the crypto space, means it is decentralized, and there is a public ledger of all the transaction, which means that you can trust and verify.
And there's obviously competing cryptos out there as well. Cryptocurrency is not decided. It's not just Bitcoin. There's Ethereum. There's God knows another dozen of them that are out there. We've been talking about Q in the past.
Q, which is one of those ones that is not decentralized, which is controlled by a single entity.
But it has really interesting prospects, like where the amount of the denomination is limited. It is set, and that's it. So when you talk about a fiat currency and an endless money supply now digitalized out there by the Federal Reserve, every time that they print a single dollar, it can be divided and put back into circulation 9 more times. So the further that it gets away from the Fed in terms of lending purposes, banks will take that and over 9 times that original dollar that was created, they'll create 9 more dollars of debt. And understand that for every dollar that's made by the Federal Reserve, it is a debt dollar that has to be paid back with interest. So you can never, ever, ever, ever pay it off.
Or you can pay it off, but that would mean drastic inflation. And when inflation goes up, guess who suffers the consequences?
Everybody.
You and me.
Everybody.
And who's in control of the printing press?
Not us.
Exactly. I thought you were going to answer like the usual answer, like, the Treasury through the Fed, the Congress through the Fed, and I was going to but that's actually the best answer. Is, not us.
Not us. It's part of this club, and people like Mr. Sherman here. I mean, I don't know if it's a lack of understanding or he's just so blatantly brazen that he says all of this.
That's an interesting question. I think that he's not thinking about all angles there. And he's also within a group of people. So politicians live in a bubble. We all live in different bubbles, right?
Yeah.
So we live in a podcast bubble. I tell you all the time, like, oh, we should make a podcast about this and that and the other.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it. Let's go. Okay.
Through one lens. He lives in a bubble where it's about power, and he knows that all his colleagues, there's only a few that might like think twice and be like, well, what about freedom? Are like, yeah, we need to keep that power because what makes us important? Well, the power.
If I was a cryptocurrency, and where we got this from, I think it speaks for itself. If I was a cryptocurrency, I would use this as my promo video.
Absolutely.
I mean, this guy in a seat of power on whatever commission he's on over there, whatever panel, House committee he's on. This is all you ever need to say about your own cryptocurrency. This guy's doing it for you. He's telling you right now that this is going to get rid of international power or destabilize international powers that are out there. What he means is international governments who accept the fiat currency, which is the fiat dollar that's out there.
With specifically the powers of war and of taxation. Literally the two most destructive things in the world.
So if you don't like taxes and you don't like war, get rid of the damn fiat currency in the Federal Reserve and go to cryptocurrency. God, man.
So this is not his first delve into trying to stop cryptocurrencies. Last year he said cryptocurrencies are a crook. He said that all Bitcoin does is allow a few dozen men in my district to sit in their pajamas on their couch all day and tell their wives they're going to be millionaires.
He's jealous.
And then he said, when you buy a Bitcoin, are you helping build a new factory? It's useless. And I mean, the same guy is getting his top donor of all time is a payment processor called Allied Wallet, who got indicted for fraud for illegal gambling services or something like that. It's like I already knew, and I could do more research. You can poke holes in hypocrisy all day, especially when he's so brazen. I do have a video of somebody who has awesome insight into cryptos to counterbalance the idiot Sherman over here.
I was going to replay this a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I did want to talk about one more aspect of this as we go through it real quick, and I'm gonna start it over.
I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing
Of course you do.
a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans so that we nip this in the bud, in part because not an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil.
Okay, this is what I wanted to address. For anybody out there that thinks that the fiat dollar isn't a resource dollar, mostly driven by oil, right? That's why we've done what we've done for Saudi Arabia in terms of carrying their damn ridiculous authoritarian water for the last, 50 plus years, ever since we started to invade the region, including Iran, which he mentions in sanctions, that doesn't want to play ball. So not
just propping them up, not even just defending them, but doing their overt, proactive proxy war.
Everything. And that's the thing is, whenever what you are looking at is how we've made a deal with the proverbial devil, okay? In Saudi Arabia, and I'll tell you right now, I've been to Saudi Arabia. It was awful. It was one of the places I could not wait to leave. When I got on the airplane, we were calling it the Freedom Bird, man, because we were all just, like your spidey senses just tingling because you're like, oh my God,
Is it just a very overbearing government?
It's just the idea that you're not safe. I mean, I'm telling you, from the time we left our hotel down in Riyadh one day, and we were just going to get some cash because we had to make a trip out to Dammam, and it's about a 4-hour drive. about 4-hour drive. And so, if something happens along the way in just vast desert, you've got to have some currency on you just to make sure. From the time that we had got to the bank, which was no more than 2 blocks away, we already had a tail.
Was this when you were in the military?
No, this is when I was out. And so, as Westerners, a bunch of tall white guys, I was the only guy that was former military. I said, hey, you guys need to really pay attention out here. Wahhab is real. The sect of Islam that is, somewhat radicalized. I say somewhat, that is radicalized. They have much longer beards. They dress a little bit differently. We had a Wahhab tail by the time we got to the bank. We got our money, and then we hightailed it back, and those guys were closing in on us. We've had 3 or 4 guys in our party and another 3 that were following us. And I was just like, holy cow, man. Like, you can't turn around here. And the thing is the places where we were staying, I'm sure they're surveilled. If a group of guys was going somewhere, they probably wanted to know why they're going somewhere, where they're going, and all that kind of stuff. So we made it back okay, but the whole time I was there, Banks, it was nothing more than to get out of there. So what they've done with the King of Saudi Arabia, now the prince that's incoming now, is they've made these deals back in the day that says, listen, you will be what the world runs off of, and we will make sure you are rich beyond your most ungodly dreams. If you will accept this fiat piece of paper that actually means nothing, your oil will back it up. That's what he's talking about when you have to have the New York Stock Exchange for the major oil companies to clear that stock, because without Saudi Arabia and places like them accepting the U.S. dollar, those places are gone. You know what else is gone? The U.S. dollar is gone. The reserve currency of the world is absolutely gone without us propping up Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely, especially since there's no more gold to back it.
Yeah, nothing. There's
which they were aware of, which is why they made the switch to something else.
Yeah.
Because when you don't have like a tangible asset behind your currency, and you play in so many adventurous entanglements and so forth, there's going to be risk unless you have something to back it and maybe a lot of force, which is what we rely on right now, and just a lot of trust of, well, that's what we are. So yeah, thanks to Coin Center on Twitter for that video there.
Just gave you guys a follow. 35,000. Only following 13. I bet I know who they're following. I wonder if it's the Federal Reserves. Isn't there 13 different Federal Reserves out there? No, it's not.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
But you brought that to my attention last week, and I think my mouth just hung open, and I was probably
I watched it like at least 5 or 6 times because, like you said, the brazenness of, hey, that's our power, and we need to be able to do that those destructive things there. Yeah, I wonder if comments like this, he would look at it and be like, "Oh yeah, I should have been more strategic and talked about how it's dark money and it helps do whatever XYZ crime." All monies are used for some type of crime. That's just the nature of money.
Money is just used as a medium of exchange. That's what money's definition is. It is a medium of exchange. So good, bad, and different, hocus pocus. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the U.S. dollar has been used for plenty of crimes, including the government's crimes.
Homicide. God, yeah. This is too short of a program to list all the crimes that have been committed with the fiat dollar. You know what's going to be really cool, Banks?
What?
Is when crypto picks up so much that they can't stop it.
So it's been going up and down. There's lots of prediction, and I'm not Nostradamus or anything. But recently, Bitcoin is back over. It's at 7,800 right now.
Yeah.
It was at 8,000 earlier today. That's the highest it's been since July of last year.
Don't think we're giving you investment advice. This is in terms of
not investment advice. I have lost too much money in cryptos.
Crypto is one of the ones I haven't figured out yet in terms of when, why, all that fun stuff. However, I can't help but think with guys like this and everything else, if you could spread that message, Banks, where you said, hey, listen, if we start dealing in cryptos together where they can't touch us in terms of who we're buying things from, who we're trading with, in terms of being involved with their law enforcement system that is now civil asset forfeiture, red flag laws, searches without warrants, stop and frisk, you name all the just flagrant violations of the Bill of Rights, not to mention your inalienable God-given rights that you're born with.
Whatever ups and downs there are, I just can't see the intrinsic value, the being able to transact fast and freely, and having that public ledger, so the blockchain technology, I can't see that like not being of value. So whatever happens, ups and downs, governments are going to come in the way and so forth. That is an intrinsic value. So that's why I've got a video from my dear Gary V, who I haven't mentioned in a while. He doesn't talk about politics, but he happens to stumble upon Bitcoin during a speech of his, and he's on point.
Like, I'm fascinated by barter in such an interesting way. Look, we're always going to trade. It's always that. Back to the woohoo in the audience, like, crypto's so fun because it's opened up so many different thoughts in my mind. The fact that you can sell me your home, and we can do that on the blockchain, and all the people in the middle that have nothing to do with anything get cut out, and all those economics go back to us. Energy bills, like, you start looking at some of this, 30% of the money you're paying for your energy in your home is for people in the middle that do nothing. So we're getting closer and closer to a world of us, which I think is super fascinating, massively vulnerable for governments, which is why I think it's not going to happen so quickly. I mean, if you really understand blockchain, like, China, America, and Russia are not in the business for allowing it to actually succeed. Because then we become one team. Like, you take away currency, bombs are the only thing left. Like, it gets really kind of...
So, again, Gary doesn't talk about politics. He wants to talk about business and being kind and empathetic, but he falls into it every so often.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed. It's almost as if, like, we have, like, blinders and don't see the real world, like, advantages of things sometimes, because we're looking at through a political lens. But I mean, that's just clear. Yeah, currencies, as Congressman Sherman just told us, are very valuable for our power. You take that away, governments have force, bombs.
For government power.
Yes.
For tyrannical government power, currency that is controlled kind of by them, by some some legislation out there, whether it is usurpacious or not. Government controlled money is one of those things that should not exist.
I agree. At the very least, so this is why it doesn't really matter what crypto it is. At the very least, it gives you a platform which hopefully never gets controlled, which I think is kind of like the internet in the 90s. Like, they tried to control it, and there was LimeWire and Napster and all that kind of stuff. It's so, like, hacker central. Like, I don't think they can stop it. And I think cryptocurrencies actually gain a lot from the pushback. It's like, try to stop us and see how many times we pop up in different forms.
What's really fascinating is when you couple technology advancements with crypto, and what you're saying in terms of they can't keep up. Where there's a will within the cyberspace, there's a guy figuring it out. And if it's profitable, he's got an army with him figuring it out. So now, on top of this, add to that, you're taking some of the brightest minds that understand entrepreneurship through technology, and now introduce quantum type processing. Quantum type processing will take what this is in terms of crypto and launch it into the stratosphere, almost guaranteeing at this point sometime probably within our lifetimes, because that when you look at that curve, that exponential type curve that you're looking at, that we've seen even in our lifetimes. For God's sakes, we used to have to pick up a phone and dial numbers from a landline that did nothing else. It was the size of a small, I don't know, box. And now what are you doing? You are able to talk to everybody around the world in almost an instant. You start this kind of thing, and governments that are tyrannical, like the United States of America, the Republic of Russia, or whatever the heck they call themselves these days.
I think it's a republic. Or no, it's a federation.
The People's Republic of China. These places are no more because people will not willfully give them money that they do not control. And then what happens? Well, you know what? The policemen, they find different jobs. Now they can't.
They focus on the actual job, which is supposed to be security and keeping the peace.
That'll be private.
I mean, but I think. So
I'm done.
I don't know if the definition of policeman means it's a government policeman, but whether you're protecting and serving for a private company, I mean, you're doing the same goal.
I think it's vastly different, because here's the thing: is
same stated goal.
Yeah, but not practically, right? So
no, there's different.
So
of course, somebody who's, I don't know, if an HOA hires private law enforcement, they're usually not going to say, "Hey, why don't we hire you?" And then sometimes you come knock down our doors. They're usually like, "We're hiring you just to protect us, and besides that, you just leave us alone."
That's right, man.
It's still the same stated purpose.
Yeah, but that's the problem, right? Is that guy is never ever going to do anything to threaten his livelihood, whereas what we see now, where we have
it happens all the time,
out of control, thin blue line that's out there. We have the fact that exists in this, quote unquote constitutional republic. They're finding extra constitutional ways to bring in revenue right now.
I mean, it's just a natural order of things, and when you've got an entity that needs money to exist, and you give that entity the power to get some of that, to get more money.
Oh, you can't get in my bank account? I don't think I'm going to pay you.
It kind of just like, it feeds itself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And the way the government does budgeting, which you know very well. I mean.
Oh, yeah. No, I know it well enough. What I don't know is all the trappings. And I'll tell you right now, what I know of their ability to waste god-awful amounts of money. I mean, Jesus, you look at the F-35 project, right? The F-35 project, I think, is somewhere approaching $30 billion plus or something like that.
They must be awesome planes.
Wait,
aren't they not that great or something?
Oh, they suck.
That's what
nobody likes them. Nobody. Like the guys that especially on the ground side that are supposed to work with these guys, they were supposed to replace the A-10 Warthog. The A-10 Warthog is one of the best machines flying right now for close air support, and the guys on the ground that use them would tell you right now in a heartbeat that, no, you're not replacing the A-10 with an F-35. The thing sucks. That's the problem. That's the problem. They tried to make a Swiss Army knife out of one platform. It's a be-all, fix-all that only engineers in the end would probably do something like that with no real experience behind it. And you're sitting there going, well, holy hell, why are we doing this kind of stuff? It's because nobody is responsible for the bill. Nobody's worried about getting fired, and nobody's worried about losing their entire livelihood because they didn't perform well.
Because it didn't come from a single non-artificial need.
And there's no accountability.
And then there's no accountability. I mean,
none.
What could happen?
Jeez, oh Pete, like this is so exciting to me, Banks. I don't know if I'm just revved up today or what it is, but this idea, talking through it out loud now and really seeing what and that's the thing is, we've opened the door this much. I'm holding up my fingers like a pinch. Like, we've only opened up the doors this much. Hopefully we'll see the video on this one. When that thing starts to really, and there'll be problems. I'm not saying there won't be some problems out there
liberty does not create a perfect, safe, problem-free world. It just creates a exponentially better world than when government is all controlling, all
it just eliminates the
manipulating.
Force. That's the thing. It eliminates the force of government. That's the coolest thing in the world. You eliminate the force of government, and all of a sudden you're making different decisions with your life. The social engineering is gone. When we hear, people talk about, like, I'm going to keep harping on my sheriff because the guy he doesn't get it, man. When they talk about these things that they want inside of their counties, that are so outside the Constitution. It is social shaping. It is social engineering in terms of the government doing it by force to us. That doesn't happen in these types of societies.
I find it particularly sad because not only are they just wrong on a logical sense, they're wrong on a constitutional sense. They're doing it mostly because of emotions, right? They're actually even more wrong on the emotional side, because it is not only like, it's not the wrong solution, it's the wrong solution that is highly counterproductive when you push the problem underground, when you create it to where people have to. So
yeah, the unintended consequences.
A black market is not a bad thing, but if you're saying, oh, there's a problem with opioids and we take away a safe alternative, and then on top of it you can't even know the quality of opioids because you have to buy it behind the liquor store in a dark alley.
Yeah.
You're making the problem worse, man. You're making it to where people don't have safe product, people don't have infinitely safer alternatives, and where people have to hide. So if they are really struggling, are really having a problem, you don't know it sometimes until it's too late, because, well, we all feel like criminals.
Well, that, and they wind up dead. You know, and that's the thing, is they've gotten either bad drugs, they've taken too much of it because they don't know what they're doing. They're in a bad state mentally because, first and foremost, they've been made a criminal for, for not hurting anybody or taking anybody's stuff.
And this might not sound the best, but if you've got somebody who is not going to stop doing something that's really bad for them, but you've inflated the price so much because you've made something illegal and given all the power to the cartels, then that person in turn starts committing crime so they can pay for the thing. Some of those things they shouldn't be doing in the first place. It's not good for their health and so forth. But you're just, I mean, it's problem on top of problem on top of problem.
But Banks, if you eliminate the war on drugs, who's going to pay for all the Contras and rebels out there that we're funding as the United States?
You've convinced me, Shane. We've got to do that because there can only be upside from destabilizing Latin American countries. Obviously, there's not going to be consequences like cartels killing hundreds of thousands, millions of people over the decades, and then tons of migration,
displacement that's killed even more.
Yes.
And then coming, trying to cross the southern border into the country that, is exasperated the problem to begin with, probably even made some of them up. Golly,
it's like a vicious cycle. This is like multiple vicious cycles at the same time, because like, oh, you displace people, they come here, so that's but then you've got a welfare state, and so that steals from you more, and all the people who want freedom, which is most people, the vast majority of people, I will never stop saying that, all suffer.
Yeah, so thanks.
And then start hating each other, because then you've got propagandists out there, or people who just don't understand
and you just got people living different lives
who start saying that other individuals who might not be taking the best actions, but who are just like reacting to government actions, are your enemy, when they're not your enemy whatsoever.
I would just really like to thank Congressman Sherman here for pointing out exactly in his own words what destroying the fiat currency of the United States would do to the world. I'm actually really excited about it.
That was
really
an
excited.
Interesting rabbit hole. You ready to get to some listener questions?
Yeah, we're going to do some listener questions now. We've got a mountain that we are going to get through. I hope that we can do these efficiently, sufficiently, and really make sure that we're also taking the time to answer your questions to the maximum of our ability. So
yeah, if there's some that we've missed over the almost a year now, I apologize.
We've been busy.
But I'm glad that we can get to some of them. A few I've responded to, but I just want to mention them real fast. The first one is not a question. It's just a real fast comment from SK for Liberty on Twitter. Stephen, thank you for sending me this. It's a link to a website that he started. It's called minarchytimes.com. So it's a political news kind of website. And he was just giving me information. He's like, hey, Banks, I'm starting this website. I'd love your feedback on it. And I clicked on there, and he's written some articles, and I think it's really cool. So I think you should check it out.
Cool.
He writes on a plethora of ideas and just news or just culture stuff. And it's minarchytimes.com. So that was on Twitter. And there's one other, this time a real question on Twitter. This was from Ty Ward. And I kind of answered him, but I wanted to discuss it on the podcast. This has been like 2 weeks now. He sent me a tweet from David Hogg, the one of the Parkland shooter survivors who's been on a rampage of trying to push gun control.
Did he actually even go to school there?
I don't have any reason not to think he did.
Yeah, I thought he was a student out in California at one point for some reason.
He wasn't a video. He was on TV in California at some point, but
okay, yeah, but
I have no reason.
We definitely know he's been backed up by some money to go on his little parades.
He's been on a parade around America.
Yeah, as soon as he opened his mouth.
He's now at Harvard, which good for him.
Yeah, whatever.
Hope he does a bunch of thinking and comes to the right ideas.
Yeah, not at Harvard.
But this is interesting because he tweeted a tweet. He said, "Alexa, what does U.S. imperialism look like?" And Ty said, "Any chance of discussing this on the show? The hate he's getting over this is discouraging. People dislike him, but the 'we're fighting terror and helping people' seems to be the most common comment." So, like, I don't agree with David Hogg on a lot. I have no problem with the fact that he's young or 17, 18, 19, whatever it is, but he's just pushing one agenda. I don't think he's thought about it as much as he thinks he has. I imagine like having your friends be killed is like horrific, and that maybe that affects him and he's very emotional about it, but he's pushing just a whole bunch of hogwash. David Hogwash.
Oh, wow. It was a pretty blatant
Thank you. But this is actually pretty truthful. It's a Yahoo News article, and it shows a picture of Africa, and it says, "Revealed, the U.S. military's 36 code-named operations in Africa."
Yeah.
So we're in Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, Mali, Somalia, Niger, South Sudan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there's an actual Africa command.
And
thanks.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I knew it because I went through the Twitter feed.
Yeah, there's AFRICOM is what it's called, and I don't know how old AFRICOM is, but I don't remember.
It's not that old.
When I was in, I don't remember AFRICOM, and I know a lot of times when you see power shift either at the presidential level or within the military, a lot of times you will get new structure because the quote unquote the old ways aren't working. But I'm happy within this tiny vacuum of something that he's saying that is good, that he's calling out American imperialism. And just like Ty, it's kind of sad to see the comments. There's just people that are like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't love America, leave.
We're fighting for freedom." Here's a guy who calls himself an ex-Marine, which I thought was a little weird. He says that he's been in deployments to Spain and Italy and North Africa, and that all the U.S. military is doing is conducting operations against al-Mulatamen, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Islamic Maghreb, and on and on. That's all we're doing. We're just training local military. Yeah. I'm like, okay, so propping up dictators and regimes that aren't very in touch with their people for a lot of the countries in Africa, they might have asked you in. But I'm pretty sure that's not necessarily going to lead to peacefulness to just have American military people in other people's countries. Like the first, if you're fighting against your government, and then the American military is just there in a country that's not theirs, and you see that, instead of the people fighting against their government, the first thing they're going to see is, hold on, there's some foreigners here. Let me direct my anger against these foreigners, and then we can deal. I don't see how that is not, first thing, entangling alliances of epic proportions. Yeah. And really, all you're doing is training the local military. I don't believe you.
No, well, and there's some of that going on.
I'm sure there's some,
but there's other ones. There's other things going on as well, and what people don't see is we haven't left any of the countries, and I say most of the countries probably over 90% of the countries that we fought in World War II.
Do we ever leave?
And no, and that's the problem is.
Wouldn't that be the definition of imperialism
It's
itself?
exactly
Like just
it.
making sure that we're everywhere?
And here's the thing is, I know from my time in the service that a lot of the guys that spend time on Okinawa are not welcome there. The culture is extremely nice to people that they don't like. And the fact that we have been in Okinawa for as long as we have with the 3rd Marine Division, there are calls to move, us to Northern Australia and things like that, which, if we're going to be anywhere, maybe at the invite of another country in terms of a Western type power. Yeah,
That would be better.
It would be better. But I'm telling you right now.
I'm pretty sure if you're somewhere where you're not wanted, that's a recipe for consequences.
Just as early as last year, there was over 70,000 people in Okinawa that gathered to help try to get U.S. bases off of Okinawa.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was going on.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing is around military bases, okay? A lot of times, outside of the actual military culture itself, you don't have some of the best relations even with those towns, right? And there's
Are there some instances where there's very good cooperation?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to. Most of the guys in the service that are in these communities go out and they are extremely professional. They are, guys that will de-escalate rather than escalate.
And sometimes there's no need for escalation. Like, it's pretty normal life, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, yes, it
like
is.
Like American military in Germany, they're just living life.
Yeah,
there.
And most people are not combatants to begin with.
Yeah.
Even in the military, you have a very small fraction of the military that's actually combatants. So
that's something I think we civilians, I think you call us,
yeah,
forget all the time.
Nobody knows. But what does happen though is when something horrible happens, whether it's rape or assault or death in those communities, and it's caused by one of these people on a drunken bender or something like that, that starts to stack up. And over time, people who have lived in those areas begin to get a little bit of callous towards them.
I would imagine it's the nature of foreigners being there that even when there's just a random crime, I would sadly imagine that some people just from that country jump to conclusions like, oh, it must be the foreigners.
Well, think about what we do here in the United States. Everybody's like, oh, Muslim this, Muslim that, blah, blah, blah. It's Islam, and they're the problem. And, if we're not fighting them over there, we're going to fight them here. Like, no, man. No, that's...
Jumping to conclusions.
Don't do that kind of stuff, And I know what I'm saying is we should not be there. We shouldn't have been in the Middle East since the 1950s. We should, the imperialists, I know Japan attacked us. There's a lot more to that, behind the scenes story before we were attacked at Pearl Harbor that, FDR was not forthcoming with, kind of provoked Japan. I'm not saying we're going to apologize for, World War II with Japan.
That's a slippery slope because then you can just talk about the fact that some people say that Japan was ready to surrender. When and that's the thing. But to get us into the European theater where we're still all over Europe, the fact that we're in the Middle East, the fact that we have AFRICOM now, we're in the South Pacific as well. I mean, where does it stop? It doesn't seem to.
It doesn't seem to.
So it's really sad to see all these people on David Hogg's thing just saying you're a tool. What about China? Chinese imperialism. A GIF like giving him the finger from a guy wearing an American flag T-shirt, and just like
there's no rational conversation.
Because I don't have a problem saying that that's a good thing he tweeted.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like at the very least, it's interesting to look at. Like I didn't know we had 36 things going.
Do I think David Toole or David Hogg? Yeah. So you Freudian slip. Now I'm Freudian.
His name is David Hogwash.
David Hogwash. Do I think he's a tool? Yeah, I think he's a tool. But you know what? Maybe that's his first step down the road of really trying to get his crap together.
I believe in redemption for everybody,
Yeah, why not?
or the possibility of redemption.
What a turnaround story that would be. David Hogg, if you're listening out there and you need help turning around your image here in America, maybe the first step in what you're doing is this. And if you need more help in turning yourself around and seeing liberty, man, that would be
questioning something.
Great story.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
So that led me to a tweet that I saw the other day. On my personal account, I've started to follow people I don't agree with at all. Just
You're
so
really good at that.
I
So you can get banned?
just so I can see their tweet really fast and
Yeah.
tweet back at them. I love Twitter. Okay, I'm only 4 months onto it. I might hate it soon, but for now, I think it's really awesome the amount of interaction you can have.
Yeah.
There's some people who misuse it, but that's their right, in my opinion. And Twitter has the right to kick them off. Anyways, but it led me to a tweet from Alyssa Milano, who's gone on her whole sex strike thing and so forth. But in the middle of all that, she retweeted Eric Schmidt from the New York Times. He says, White House reviews military plans against Iran, including sending as many as 120,000 troops to the Middle East. God. And she said to that, anyone else freaking out about this? Raise your hand if you're freaking out about this. I'm freaking out about this. Pompeo just met with Lavrov. So Secretary Pompeo.
Yeah.
Lavrov is the equivalent from the Russian Federation to talk about the same thing. Totally freaks me out.
Yeah.
And Venezuela. So I might not agree with her on anything else.
Anything. Nothing.
But we share a common, I think, important and justifiable freak outness. That's not a word, but whatever.
Yeah.
About dismay. I don't understand now how she is a Biden supporter from what I've seen, because Biden is pretty pro-war.
Wouldn't she be a Tulsi Gabbard?
At the very least, a Bernie Sanders, because he voted against Iraq, and it's not his big issue.
Maybe she's not betting on the old man. Well, I guess if she's a Joe Biden, she is betting on an old man. I mean, Joe's not much younger than Bernie, for God's sakes, if at all. Isn't he the oldest guy in the race right now? I think he is.
Maybe.
God. Have you seen some of the stuff he's been doing? I saw a GIF the other day, or GIF, or however you say that, where he is holding Hillary Clinton on a tarmac. I mean,
holding?
Yeah, holding, like arms around her waist, no daylight in between.
Okay.
And
like a hug? We call that hugs.
Yeah, it's a hold. It's a hold because Hillary taps out. At one point, after she's done talking to Joe Biden in point blank range, she just, she kind of got her arms down by her sides, and she's kind of being pulled in. And you can just see the whole body posture, man. And
Biden is holding, or Bernie is holding?
No, Biden is holding Hillary Clinton.
Said Bernie at first.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Biden's holding Hillary tighter than I think probably she's been held in a long time, and it's not welcome. I mean, the fact that he's freaking Satan herself out, and she reaches up with this kind of limp arm, is like, all right, Joe, time to let go.
That's hilarious.
Oh, little nuzzle humper that he is. That guy is just
Yeah. So I'm glad that these two very paid attention to leftists are somewhat concerned about war. Yeah. It's been I haven't seen the anti-war left that much recently.
I would love to see him.
But Tulsi Gabbard, at least is there. She's qualified for the debates, meaning she has more than 65,000 donors, and I am excited to see what she says.
What else did I hear about Tulsi the other day?
She went back on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day. I haven't listened to it yet.
Either.
But apparently Joe, while talking to Tulsi, they stopped and listened to the whole farewell address from who warned about the military-industrial complex?
Oh, Eisenhower. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I know she doesn't vote the way she talks. She votes. She votes to support the continuing resolutions.
We did an episode 20 episodes ago where we talked about Tulsi and the fact that she hasn't been completely consistent, but she's still the most consistent
out of those people
about war.
There was a couple other things, that she said apparently on that podcast, and I think I just saw a quick little write up on it, and I wish I could pull them from the top of my mind, but a couple really big policy points, Banks, where I was like, oh wow, man, I've never considered pulling a ticket for a Democrat. I never have. And I was sitting there going, I wonder if, she continues to go down this route. And the thing is all politicians will say all sorts of things just to get elected. I'm still waiting for that dark horse to emerge somewhere. But in terms of electability, I sat there for the first time and said, maybe if they're smart, this will be their candidate. I mean, I
still couldn't vote for her because she might be good on foreign policy. She is good on foreign policy for like B+, A-, but on everything else, she's just like the other Dems.
Yeah.
Though she came out and said that free speech should be encouraged on all platforms. So that's actually that's not like all the other Dems. I take that back.
There was a couple things, and I'll search for them if you want to go back to your next.
Yeah. So that was a long answer to Ty Ward. He just wanted us to discuss it, and I think pointing out where everybody else is being a hypocrite. Okay, so all the people on the right are attacking David Hogg, being, oh, you're so stupid, and you're a traitor, and whatever else, saying go join the military yourself. When we can point out to people when our side, I don't really have a side, but when somebody's being hypocritical to the other side, I think that's where you start to infiltrate minds. Be like, oh, look. Who is the guy being consistent? Every time something happens, he points out the hypocrisy, whether it's his side or not.
Right.
Like, what does he believe? Oh, he believes in liberty.
Huh. Weird. Peace, liberty,
seeds of
free markets,
brush fires of liberty.
Consistently, no matter who's saying it. I don't care.
I think it takes a lot of time, and it might not be the most productive thing. But as we said with Steffi Cole on episode 87, like making sure people understand that you care about them and not being too aggressive to tell them that they're horrible, wrong people, that's oftentimes the best way. There are some people who need like the iron sharpens iron type thing, who need to be confronted and so forth. But most people, they want a dose of honey.
They do. They want to feel that that welcomeness into that understanding. Like, hey, listen, man. I've been there. I've done it, whether, it was from my type of side, like a neocon, or whether it was from like Steffi's type of side where she was a bleeding heart liberal, right? People who are in this liberty movement, they don't care where you're coming from. They just want to know that, hey, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one that's done this. I'm not the only one that's had to kind of eat some crow. And that when I come over here, I'm welcome. Kind of almost like kid gloves. I hate to say it. A lot of the liberty movement doesn't know the kid glove side of things. I'm on that continuum sometimes.
I've done it too.
When I have to confront people who are already in office and I need their attention and I'm not getting what I need out of these people, the gloves are off and I'm putting on brass knuckles. Like that's just my MO.
I'll tell you a quick story that was one of the not defining moments, a big moment that taught me that my approach was wrong. It was on the re-election of my friend Charles Gregory, who was my first race. I was his chief of staff, and he lost his first re-election. But during that campaign for re-election, we had this girl from a local university send us an email and be like, hey, I'd like to volunteer. And she's just part of the local college Republican group of that university. And at the end of every day of door knocking, we'd meet at this at Cold Stone's Creamery for ice cream. And we're like, hey, if you can come tonight, you can meet us. And then the next time you come out, you'll be ready and trained and so forth. So it's like 8:30 at night or 9, and she meets us there. And she sits between my friend Charlie and I. And there's a few other volunteers around, and Charlie's kids like running around. And we start talking to her. And Charlie and I have been, this is 2 years in the Georgia Capitol, going through hell and high water. Before that, it was the Ron Paul campaign.
Right.
And we know where a ton of the bodies are buried and all the sick, despicable things going on. And I only realized this afterwards. We just started bombarding this poor girl with all this information about how everybody's so evil and it's
just making friends, huh?
And it's destructive, and you wouldn't. And we think we're giving her this cool information about just how bad it is. Like, hey, we just spent 2 years at the Capitol and we learned all these things here. We never heard from her again.
Yeah.
And Charlie's wife was around, and when she left, she was like, "Do you guys realize how weird and aggressive you came across?" And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, I've definitely gotten more conversion, and what it takes me back to is the that, I don't know, panel, if you want to call it that, with the 6 Democrats here in the Georgia 7th, right? Mm-hmm. The only Republican, quote unquote, on stage there. And I didn't ever feel the need to be confrontational with the crowd that was obviously largely Democrat, and all the 6 panelists that were up there. It wasn't that, brass knuckle. It was like, let's put on the 12-ounce gloves here, and we'll just do a little sparring. It'll be fun. And when we walked away from that, the amount of people that came up and were like, "Hey, listen, thanks. I wouldn't vote for you in a million years, but at least we know, that you'll show up. At least we know that you've got a good attitude, that you have well-defined principles, that you're at least citing the Constitution as a source." Like,
you gained tons of credibility for the rest of the campaign with a few of the candidates. Some were just a little bit more stubborn than others, and a lot of the volunteers of said candidates. And if you want to convince people, like if you've got your Facebook feed, you've got whatever, 250, 500 friends. If you got your Facebook feed and you start to build credibility because you're consistent, and the person who knows that you're an ardent pro-gun, there's no exceptions to the Second Amendment guy out there, and your, I don't know, your cousin just hates that you're that way on that issue, but you tweet out or share David Hogg's thing saying, "Hey, I don't agree with David Hogg on guns, but it's good to call it American imperialism."
Yeah,
that cousin might be taken aback.
Yeah.
And
wait, this doesn't work.
She might not even realize it. She or he, whatever it is, might not even realize it. But in the future, she's probably going to take what you share, what you talk about, a little bit more seriously.
I've had that exact same thing happen with my own family, Banks. Like when in the past, where I've lost, relationships for, being perceived as this, veteran that's, wrapped in the flag and all this kind of stuff, to now where what they see and they understand because of more of a public type of lifestyle. When you present those type of things in a calm and really just a consistent type of manner, it people scratch their heads a lot of times because, like, I don't get it. How can this person who believes in that the corporate and government bureaucratic monster that's out there it's a bad thing, right? At the same time, can be extremely pro-peace and anti-war. Like we've been so conditioned in our society to think that one has to be synonymous with the other, that you're either this way or you're this way in this society, that we don't really, not this crowd, but
I know
the general public in America has a hard time understanding who these people are in this liberty movement.
There's so many good examples where as much framing of the narrative that is being done, right? Yeah. So there's so much framing of the narrative that keeps us divided. But there are so many examples you can just pierce through the middle. It's like, hey, you don't have to be on either side of like the marriage thing. Why don't we just all like get along and don't get the government involved at all? Hey, peaceful solution for everybody. Yeah, and people, that one has been actually kind of controlled by the narrative where it's like, oh, people who just don't want the government involved, they're just Nazis. But I still think that it's the narrative is trying to hide the truth so like overtly there that most people can see through that one.
Yeah.
Like if you're just like, I don't hate people because of who they love.
Yeah,
like I think that should talk to a lot of people.
What was it, Jacob Ledden when we talked about that? Hey,
he was very good.
If it's going to be state prescribed, then it needs to be equal no matter what. Okay, let's take the government out of it and just make it contractual between people. We don't need anybody in our lives to tell us who we love and to make a contract with that person. We don't need it.
Agreed.
Yeah. We're good. I mean, we're having a fun show here, so
Okay.
we're just gonna keep on rocking.
You got another question, or do you want me to get to another one?
I've got one. This is from my buddy Bill. I actually got this one from a lot of people because there was a question about how constitutional is it for people to take God out of congressional proceedings.
So what does our expert constitutionalist say?
Let's play. It's a minute 55. Bear with me. I'll try not to play the entire thing, but I want to address this because it might not be popular, but at the same time, the constitutional answer, if that's what you're looking for, I'll give it to you.
Can you put it on the screen for us?
Sure.
Thanks.
Let me see. Whoop. I'm gonna pull it over here. This is I don't know who this guy is. The Daily Ledger program.
One nation under Democrat demolition. Did you know they have removed
Somewhat
God?
Inflammatory.
The majority party in the House of Representatives has deleted God from as many official congressional proceedings as possible, including swearing in witnesses.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief? Great. Thank you. Let the record show the witnesses.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I think we left out the phrase, "so help me God."
We did.
Could we have the witnesses do it again for the record?
Yeah, if they want to do it, but some of them don't.
Mr. Cohen,
Necessary, and
I think
like
it's
to
Mr.
assert my will
Johnson
over it.
from Louisiana.
Well, it goes back to our founding history. It's been part of our tradition for more than 2 centuries, and I don't know that we should abandon it now. Could I ask the witnesses if they would choose to use the phrase?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Nadler.
if any witness objects, he should not be asked to identify himself. We do not have religious tests for office or for anything else, and we should let it go with that.
What?
I'm going to stop it there because I don't need to hear anything else out of this tan blowhard's face on the Daily Ledger.
So that's interesting. So the people who contacted you, what was their question?
So can they
is it constitutional?
take God out of the proceedings? And the answer is absolutely. It might not be a popular answer. Here's the deal, ladies and gents. The swearing in under the Constitution is Article 6, Section 3 in terms of any office, and I'll read it to you. The senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall be ever required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So Nedler's correct. It's not going to be the most popular answer out there, but here's the thing: is if they can prescribe to you how you have to do things, and with even the acceptance of God or without the acceptance of God, then they can also prescribe to you which God that you have to worship. That's not okay. You don't ever want to give that power to the worst person on earth. If they can sit there and tell you that you've got to, for the same people who are objecting to this, replace Islam with what you're talking about. Are you going to sit there and swear to Allah that you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I'm not going to. And you know what? If we get to that point, you're going to have something cut off most likely.
It's interesting how people are not able to see the reverse of the situation.
Right.
It's like, hey, would you want to be forced to swear to something you don't believe in?
Yeah.
Then don't force other people to swear to something they don't believe in. Like on the controversial bandwagon,
Yeah.
I find it so at the state capitol, everybody they have a pastor of the day and so forth. For all the ones that I've been to, it's been a Christian or non-denominational Christian pastor, and there are atheists and Muslims and agnostics. I don't know if there's a Hindu or not at the state capitol. I don't have any problem with anybody doing anything voluntarily. So you're a state rep at the Capitol, in Congress, whatever it is, or organize whatever thing you have. That at the state Capitol, there's like 20 or 30 members who meet really early in the morning, like 6:30 on Wednesdays, I think, for like a Bible study with legislators. Fine. But forcing other people, I think that takes away from your religion, especially if it's Christianity. Like, people are supposed to have free will. You're not supposed to force things upon them.
Jesus literally said that he gave you a choice. It was not a mandate. You're not ever going to find in the Bible a mandate that you have to go out there and make people through force accept that he was Christ and died and rose, and like, that doesn't exist. I mean, and here's the other thing. Let's put the shoe on the other foot. If you've got to mandate that somebody sits there, Banks, hold up your left middle finger and place your other hand on this notepad. That's not the middle finger I was talking about. Oh. But
I'm just too polite.
You know what I mean? Like, if I make you swear to something that you don't in your heart, preserve as a principled stance, does it mean anything anyway? Hell no. It's under stress and duress. There are literally thousands and thousands of court cases that get thrown out every year because people are under stress and duress. So for anybody to sit there and tell
I'm always under stress and duress. I'm not responsible for any of my actions anymore.
That's true.
Actually, I'm not very stressed or under duress right now.
So for anybody that thinks that they cannot take God out of congressional proceedings, I hate to tell you, but constitutionally there's no grounds for that whatsoever.
You shouldn't want the government in charge of religion anyways. I'm not even arguing the separation of state and
Banks,
church.
we were founded on Judeo-Christian principles.
We were.
Whoa, wait a second.
No, hold on.
That's a lie too.
A lot of the people who founded this country and a lot of the ideas that are embedded in, that's maybe why I'm a Christian, there's a lot of overlapping ideas.
Yeah.
Like, there's no...
But let's talk about, I mean...
We were founded based on a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution, which are words on a piece of paper, which are very clear.
But, I mean, if you look at back in history in the founding of this nation, what you're going to find is a lot of religious zealots that burn people at the damn stake, that drown people, that did horrendous things to their own people in the name of...
but we're just saying what we were founded on.
In the name of religion, right? In the name of Judeo-Christian type religion.
There's bad people from all religions.
I agree with you totally. So let's not get let's not get hung up on this, people. Listen.
But my point is that you shouldn't want the government involved in religion anyways. It takes away from the value of any religion. There is not one government on the entire planet that is not going to take away value from any religion that you think is cool or right or whatever or has value if you put the government in charge of it. The government is only going to take away from its value.
So
if you force somebody who does not believe in a particular religion or who maybe hates it, and you force them to do something under the premise of that religion, you're just making things worse.
You want to drop some big bombs today on the same subject?
Slightly scared. Go ahead.
Having government in control of religion already exists here in the United States.
In what way? I don't necessarily disagree.
99.9% of churches inside of America are 501c3 churches.
Okay.
All right. So 501c3 churches are churches who have signed up to the regulations of being a nonprofit organization under IRS tax code.
So as to not pay taxes.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, can the government tax churches to begin with? They can't.
That's in the Constitution?
Well, you can't make any laws regarding churches, period. First Amendment. Nothing.
Respecting the tradition within.
Yeah, you can't do it. So here's the thing is, taxes were never ever...
Well, hold on. If you... Just because it says it's phrased that way in the First Amendment, if they tax everybody equally, that would not be respecting a... whatever. What's the wording? Respecting a something of religion. An establishment of religion.
Right.
So they could tax churches, they just taxed everybody equally.
But they didn't. That's the thing is, churches were never taxed. And when this all came about, so back in the day, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was a senator at the time, was having a lot of trouble with his re-election campaign. And what was happening is the church was actually going out and sponsoring people to actually run the way that churches used to here in the United States. People from churches would hold up good men and get into politics. You wonder why we've had a real steady decline of classy God-fearing type people here in the United States, it's because of 501c3 type rules. And you can go through.
That can be one of the reasons.
Oh, it's definitely one of the most major reasons.
It's probably a big reason.
In my very humble opinion.
You know I like to be precise,
Yeah.
but I just think that there are so many other reasons, mostly cultural, and the government has a big effect on culture, but not necessarily that specific.
Does your church have to be a 501c3? No, it doesn't. Does it sign up from its own free volition? It does. And so when it does so, it also accepts the IRS's code of tax law. And so when it does that, it also agrees it will not do certain things from the pulpit. Mm-hmm. One of those things is politics. So they've taken the government and stuck it squarely into church, and they've taken the church and pulled it out of government, which is fine by me on the backside, the former. It is not fine by me on the front side. If you're going to a 501c3 church, I'll tell you right now,
the vast majority of people,
I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. Once I found out the truth about why 501c3 churches were implemented, Lyndon Baines Johnson at the time was one of the guys that helped the legislation go through to create 501c3 tax exemption for churches. They did a giant push to have people come online through the churches to be 501c3, and that's when a lot of churches started to bow down to the state through their own free volition.
Without really realizing it, I don't think it's a little bit like the toad in a pot of water that's so slowly boiling. They might even say, no, we don't change our actions based on the fact that we're a 501c3, but there's a little bit of fear in there that they just don't want to cause any problems.
Well,
it just simmers.
And you know what they'll say is, well, okay, what do we do without it? How do we report our income and everything? Why do you need to? Well, because our parishioners need to go back and report how much in money that they're giving to us, to the IRS, for their tax breaks. It's crazy, man.
It's like a lot of examples where freedom is curtailed. I understand people doing certain things under duress. I think each person has their own individual decisions to make about that. But I think while I agree, the perfect world is definitely that the government has nothing to do with churches, and churches aren't taxed, or nobody's taxed for that matter. But I understand that it's like the way you live your practical life within this world. Like, I file my taxes. I don't want to file my taxes. I file my taxes because I know people who don't file taxes. I have tons of respect for those people. I decide to do it because I want to operate. It's the decision that I've come to. While I understand, I wish my church wasn't a 501c3. There's is it Mike Baldwin?
One of the Baldwin brothers?
No, it's not. He just happens to have last name Baldwin. He's a pastor who's involved with a group to try to tell churches they don't have to be 501c3s,
mm-hmm.
which is unfortunately a risk.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
but that's the truth. You want the truth. You want to be really outraged about something. Go look at your churches.
There's so many things to be outraged about.
If they're 501c3 churches, get the 501c3 out of your church. And the only thing you have to do is in the next tax year is don't file as a 501c3 church. That's it.
But there's risk associated. I'm trying to be as empathetic as humanly
and
possible.
And as Christians, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to have faith, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah,
but I don't want to condemn people for their.
I'm not condemning people.
I don't write off donations to charity.
What I'm doing is I'm introducing the idea. Listen, this was a hard red pill for me to swallow, man. I actually went and talked to my pastors and brought forth an entire pamphlet that I had printed out from my own research and looking through codes and laws and history, and pointed this all out. And the explanation I got after the deacons all met and all that fun stuff was, hey, this will cause undue hardship on our church, man. I said, you guys, I love you to death, but I can't go here. Those
are all
tough
peaceful,
thing to do, man.
Tough decisions.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you, until there's the overwhelming I guess groundswell out there that understands this history that is absolutely an awful thing that has invaded, American churches everywhere, until there's this uprising that says, hey, listen, we can't be 501c3s anymore. We've lost ourselves. It won't change.
Yeah, I don't want anybody taxed, so.
Yeah, so don't be a 501c3. Anyway, so that was from my buddy Bill Good, and I don't want any more control over the government, telling us who and what we have to do in terms of oaths or anything else. So,
might we have to take a small break before we come back?
It's 1:20. I think we're good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I have another quick question. This is from Gina. She asks, video ? Soon.
Hey, I'm working on it. So a lot goes into production, and what goes into creating, Gina, and I'm sure you probably know more than most people out there in terms of this kind of thing, is what you got to do is square away your intros and your outros. And there's something very unique very unique. I'm not going to qualify unique. That's not a smart thing to do. What you've got to do is create something that is first and foremost not copyrighted, and it grabs the attention, looks professional, and is worthy of being seen by an audience who I think probably expects a whole lot out of this two-man show, with some support out there. Like, it's
long story short, we're trying to make it to the standard we want before we release it.
Think we're on the verge.
And we've tested a few things. We've tested long term. We'd like to have multiple cameras, but for the beginning, we're going to do one camera angle.
Very simple.
So you'll see the big screen that says Rebellion on it, and you'll see us from the side.
Yeah.
Which you won't see our faces that much. We look at the camera every so often.
And wave.
But you will see kind of our interaction, and especially if we have a guest in studio, you'll see him or
square
her
on,
face on.
Yeah. And I kind of like this format, man. It's I think in terms of being young and new into this video type space, it's about what you can get out, that it is kind of professional, that it's easy to do, that's not a giant time suck. But I think sticking the intros, the outros, and just the feel of it, for you guys that are out there, I mean, I think I've got like 4, maybe 5 now that are already recorded. It's just once we stick those, we'll start releasing clips and entire segments, so that if you're like me, I mean, this is what I do at night sometimes. If I need to kind of catch up or decompress, and I've got some time and I'm wide awake going to bed at 9:30 or whatever it is, I'll throw on a podcast on my Apple TV through YouTube and just kind of hang out and watch it. Now,
what's your favorite video podcast, or podcast as a video format too?
It's Joe Rogan. There are such a variety of different things that you just don't have exposure to, that are extremely knowledgeable guests, if not expert level guests, that come on. And, some things are fun, some things are more serious. And
I like seeing the visual expressions and so forth between Joe and his guests. I think that works really well.
I'll tell you right now, man, I just watched the one with Kevin Hart that you sent me, and I had missed that one. I have always thought the guy was funny, but now I have such a respect for his ethos. Like, when that guy talks about having the force field around his family and how he's untouchable and things like that, like when I come home, my phone's up, I'm with my family, and that, as long as, like I always said, is as long as they are safe and they're happy and fed, they've got a nice bed to sleep in, like everything else is just icing on the cake for me, man. And so that little impenetrable bubble, like, I don't care what's going on out there in life, if I've got those things squared away, I'm real good in the world. And that's a lot of what, I think he said drives him, is like, work your ass off in life. Work. But when it's time to put into balance the family unit and everything else, you put that time especially aside for them, and it's everything you got while you're with them. And I mean, that's the way I do it. And I'll tell you, with what's going on in the world, man, I wouldn't have it any other way. That's why I think my, what is it, IDGAF or whatever it is. I don't care about a lot of non-consequential type things out there. we're going to keep on trucking. We're going to keep on moving, keep on driving.
Makes for a more productive life to not expend energy on things that are of no consequence.
Well, not only that, but just being thankful. I mean, we've got to do that grateful podcast here soon.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I keep on preparing it and then need more preparation.
I can't wait.
There's so many things to do on the podcast. I mean, some people might imagine, but every time Shane and I see each other, and multiple times while we're in studio, we're like, hey, what about this?
Yeah, we got to write this down.
Extra idea. And it's like, I'm saying to myself, you realize, Banks, that's like another, like, I don't know, 100 hours of like work of preparation. Speaking of that, one of the questions was, it's not really a question, but it's an invitation to have Caleb Schumat on the show. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He writes for the Libertarian Republic. It's a request from Quest.
Quest, my boy.
And you had a question about having somebody on the show too come to you, I think.
Yeah, I did. Jesse Rude. Hey man, if you're out there from the constitutional grassroots movement, you wanted me to ask Banks. The answer is a overwhelming yes. Jesse was real instrumental in helping us get the constitutional grassroots movement.
Yeah, they had us do that online constitution class that was shared and like reached like 40,000 people.
It was amazing. And I mean, not only that, they built a website. They put us up on it with a bunch of other guys that were, constitutionally approved. And I'll tell you, if you're looking at metrics out there in terms of who is electable in these spaces, that's the one thing that when people ask me, well, what I'm thinking about running for office. What should I know? Like, all right, well, what's the one thing that's going to drive every decision you make in office? I get blank stares. You've been there for some of them, like, man.
And I want to like these candidates. I want to have more candidates.
Well, and that's the thing is, I can tell you right now, if you're not a constitutionalist, you're never going to get my vote. If you're not that person that absolutely knows where they're turning it every time they've got to make a decision when it comes to government, for God's sakes. The Constitution of the United States, you swore an oath to it. You should know it. You should be able to exercise it, apply it. And when you don't know the answer to something, go back and look at it. Find the answer.
It's funny because sometimes like you can see the good intention.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm just like, okay, maybe like in the future. Right now, you just proved that you didn't know the Constitution.
Study.
I'm giving you like hints like crazy. Maybe go study and then come back.
Study.
Like, not this time.
Not only study, but be able to teach it. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to take votes, and you better be able to stand in front of your worst critics and be able to point to that Constitution and say, this is why I took these votes. The way I took these votes, that's it. Do you have any other type of information from the Constitution that you can show me where I should have voted otherwise? Great. Thank you for coming. End of story. That's it.
And if you want to be like next level, you point to the Constitution where it's flawed.
Yeah.
And you're like,
post offices.
I have decided
post roads
that natural law is in contradiction with ink on paper, and we should abolish the United States Postal Service.
Yeah. And Federal Reserve and the rest of that crap that's out there.
Well, the Federal Reserve is not in the Constitution.
U.S. Treasury. Yeah, I don't know. At any rate, man, 128. Got anything else over there?
I mean, I've got a few, but do you want to try to make this? Might be an easy, short response to a kind of long
lightning
question.
round.
Sure, it's a longer question, but he says this is from Brant Cole. He says, I've spent the last few months thinking about this idea, and maybe you guys can help me work through it. Regardless of whatever is being done, immigrants are coming to the U.S.
Yep.
Once they arrive, it seems like they're arriving delivered right into the hands of the left. Often that seems true. We of the Liberty Movement should try and beat the left to its own game instead of losing the battle on immigration. We should be welcoming these citizens and educating them in liberty. What do you guys think? I haven't worked the idea into an actual plan yet. I'm an educator, and I believe education is the ultimate non-aggression approach to freedom.
Yeah.
So
how do you forcefully, that's the thing, is how do you get compliance? How do you get people, how do you find out he's illegal or he's here recently or whatever it is?
So that's the first thing that I thought of.
Yeah.
There are some ways to, like, somebody who said that they just came here or who doesn't speak very good English, whatever it is. But I think you just approach every single person out there with a consistent message and to be very corny of like love and peace, and this doesn't even matter. You can think that they should not be here and that they should be taken forcefully back, and we can have that conversation. But whatever you're doing, if you can approach it with as much love and peace and acceptance and spreading the ideas of liberty,
hey, I'll tell you what,
you're going to make friends.
I'll tell you what. Here in Metro Atlanta, if you're anywhere in the Metro Atlanta area, especially on the north side, if you can go to places where people who are fresh immigrants, whether illegal or legal, come in, you want to sponsor like a pizza night where we have attendance at a church or whatever it is, I'll offer my time for free to come in and teach the Constitution. You're going to have to provide a translator possibly, but I will take my time and I will do that, because I think that's probably something you're exactly right on is, there has to be, America isn't, it isn't a race or gender or religion or any of that nonsense. It's not sexual preference. It's none of it. It is an idea that you have inalienable rights. We codified it in the Constitution, became a constitutional republic. That is it. I will teach that in and out whenever I can. You buy the pizzas, I'll show up and do the class.
I've got a Spanish translator in mind who I'm pretty sure would be happy to do it.
I hope people take me up on the offer, man.
Or if we have a bunch of French immigrants, I'll do the translation. But for some reason...
the French enclaves and balkanization of in Metro Atlanta, I don't really know that it exists.
They've been trying to swim over the Atlantic, and it's just not working.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to come for pizza? You got to stay for the education.
Cool.
That'd be awesome.
You want to end it here?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think it's been an interesting episode. I like the...
I love this. I like this format.
We need to do this every so often because I've still got like 3 or 4 questions that we just don't have time for.
We're going to have to do another one soon.
Okay.
All right.
As always, please go on iTunes or on your Apple Podcast app on your phone
or
and leave
Facebook
us a 5-star review. Yeah. If you're on Android or don't have iTunes on your computer, you can go to Facebook and leave us a review there too. We will read it on the air.
Yep.
If you have any comments, criticisms, ideas for guests, info for us, whatever it is, you can send it to info@rebellionpod.com or send it to us on social media @rebellionpod.
If you want to become a patron of the show, you find lots of value here. You can go to patreon.com/rebellionpod. We can't tell you how much we appreciate that. It's really helping push us and getting us all fired up about future plans here.
There are 3 packs of stickers that went out on Monday.
Yep.
Whenever you're listening to this, I'm not exactly sure yet. And we're going to have a new batch of stickers in a couple of months. If you want a certain sticker, this is your chance. Send me the idea, and somebody will make it up. We don't have ideas right this second, but anything you want.
We've got a couple. I've got a couple. Maybe I just need to share them with you. We've got at least 2 that I'm really
we have
really
one that's not
about.
It's not a new design. It's just going to be a new type of sticker, and that I'm not going to tell you guys. It's going to be really cool.
It's going to be so. I'm just going to tell you right now, when you're driving around at night, you're going to be able to spot each other. It's going to be rad. I mean, and I use that.
Rad is probably the right word.
In the most 1980s sense possible. God, I love this crowd. Banks, I love doing this with you, man. This has been an awesome show. The guests we've had on lately have just, they've taught me so much. I can't wait to do the next one. And we've
got to go appear in another podcast.
Yeah, this is we're going to be on the Brian Nichols, and so we'll have that one for you. He'll have it for you. But until next time, this has been The Rebellion, your place for peace, liberty, and free markets. We love you. We need you.
Peace.
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.